In a small town in Massachusetts, a boy lives with blindfolds and dark glasses to hide his face because apparently he has a strange disease from which people die unexpectedly when they see his face. That's why today looks that kill. This is the story of a teenager named Max Richardson who goes to therapy for a strange birth problem and is able to kill those who see him. His parents realized that their son was strange because when he was born, the first to die were the doctors who attended the birth. But to lead a quieter life, the whole family moves to a small town in Massachusetts called Plex, where little Max can go unnoticed in order to stop the unexplained deaths. Max covers his face with bandages, dark glasses, and a cap, although this makes him a rather shy guy. During a visit to the doctor, he meets a girl named Alex, who suffers from a strange heart disease, but for now it doesn't matter, and we will talk about her again in a while. A little later, Dan, who is Max's best friend, and his parents try to get him to go on some dates because it's Valentine's night. Although for the bandage guy who doesn't leave the house and has no friends, this is very difficult. Dan arranges a blind date with a girl named Erica, but everything goes very wrong because she thought her date would be with Dan, and he leaves her alone with Max. Meanwhile, in the same restaurant is in Valencia, and Greg, who is like the bully of the town, having an argument, and she runs out of the place. But Greg bothers more because of his bandages, and everything gets out of control when the restaurant manager has to intervene in the middle of the fight. The failed date makes Max very sad and goes to a bridge to commit suicide, but that's when Alex shows up again because she tries to convince him not to and ends up telling him that if he jumps, she will too. After this, they go together to a nursing home that Alex frequents. And where does Esther live? A novelist with more than 30 stories written and who is working on her most important book, which is not just an autobiography, but tells what life is like for someone with Alzheimer's. To make sure Max doesn't get hurt, Alex accompanies him to her house and he asks her out on a date the next day, but she says no to the night. Max tells everything that happened to his friend Dan and he convinces him to look for her again on the same bridge and convince her to take a walk together. So the next day, he decides to go to the same place and meets Alex, and they decide to go together to a supermarket to buy many gummies to fill a bathtub. And they talk about Max's strange condition, and apparently he has such a native face that he is capable of killing everyone who sees him. But Alex doesn't seem too surprised because everyone in town knows about this strange condition. There, she also tells him how she has been on the verge of dying many times because her heart is allergic to endorphins and swells with every emotion she has, so she cannot have many emotions, and to control it she carries with her a device that is capable of measuring the heart rate and the size of her heart. Alex decides to take Max to an oddly peculiar theater that hasn't showcased new films for about 5 years. To make the most of their time, they decide to buy some wine. After the screening ends, they head back to Max's room, leading to a tender moment where she gently removes his dark glasses, revealing his eyes. But still, nothing impactful happens. However, their moment is abruptly cut short as the parents arrive with an unexpected surprise. They introduce a Korean exchange student named Yui Shin, who has been sent to America by her parents but is clearly disinclined to be there. "Welcome to your new home," they say. The following day, Max and Alex return to the nursing home to visit Esther and Binga. An elderly woman named Rosemary, 82 years old, sits alone at a table eagerly awaiting her son, who has promised to bring a cake to celebrate her birthday. And although he has some time to wait, everything indicates that this birthday will be as lonely as all the others. During this talk, they realize the value of friendship, and although they are alone in that place, they have all become a close-knit family. But all this doesn't matter much for now. What matters is that when Max returns home, he is in for a surprise because his mother tells him he must take Yuxin camping. Along with Alex, Dan, and his new date, all is well until Alex cuts his hand with a branch he finds in the woods, and to close the wound, Max removes a piece of his bandages to stop the bleeding. But Alex realizes that he can now see a small part of his face and nothing happened to him. During the night, the boys light a campfire and Max tells her the story of her childhood and how her first kiss happened. It was during first grade and the girl promised not to see Dan's face while they kissed. But out of curiosity, she opened her eyes to see the boy she was kissing, and as expected, the girl died as soon as she could see what she was hiding under the bandages. To all this, Alex manages to feel her heartbeat faster for Matt when she asks him for a kiss, and to keep everything under control, she blindfolds herself so as not to see him. Anyway, he ends up kissing her on the cheek, and when they return to the house, Max's mother is asked to take them out of the Christmas tree, but it ends up on fire because of Yuyun, and the two of them burn their hands and end up in the hospital. The nurse tells him that the cream will be enough for the burns, but there they meet Alex, who had told Max that he couldn't accompany him because he had to stay at his house helping his mother with some things to distract his mother. Alex pretends that Max is just a co-worker at the nursing home, but they are not friends because they work opposite shifts. And given this strange attitude, Max tells his parents his feelings while they go to do some shopping at the supermarket. And he ends up telling her that communication is the most important thing and it would be best to talk to her soon. Then they meet again on the bridge from where Max had tried to jump, and Alex explains to her that her mother doesn't let her have friends because she thinks it is too dangerous and so many emotions could affect her heart. He doesn't understand it because he thinks that with every medication, it's enough to keep everything under control. However, Alex's mother has developed an anxiety disorder that sensitizes her to any shift in her daughter's emotions. Subsequently, she opts to revisit the nursing home to see Esther, where they discover that Rosemary is gravely ill and being sustained by artificial means through medical intervention. And that's when Alex starts to bleed from her nose and leaves the room so as not to worry Max, but Max catches up with her on the stairs and they argue about euthanasia and how Max must help Rosemary rest. At first, our protagonist refuses to do it because he thinks his face is a curse and they all end up dying, but Alex convinces him that he must help her rest Rosemary. He goes back into the room and asks her if she wants to help her sleep, and she smiles. Then he removes the bandages right after Rosemary leaves his face, leading to his immediate death. After this, Alex disappears and does not answer Max's messages. He is half sad, not knowing what happened to her. But Dan manages to ask her to the spring dance on his friend's behalf and she says yes. When they meet at Alex's house, she tells him the truth about her disappearance, and it is because her heart has grown and they must increase their dose. But so Max doesn't feel guilty. He tells him that she doesn't want him to walk away because she's afraid of being left alone in the bubble where she always lived. Max feels a little guilty about his health, although they agree to go to the dance and she shows up at his house, I'm not sure why, dressed as a maid and he in a dog mask. During the dance, Alex gets carried away by her feelings and the two end up hugging. But this makes Alex's heart race too fast and she has to go to the bathroom because her nose is bleeding again. Meanwhile, Greg appears in BravoCon, who used to bother Max because of his face and ends up taking off his mask. And Valencia, Adam's girlfriend, manages to see his face, so he ends up dying in a few seconds. There the police arrive and our protagonist must go to prison. Although before he gets to the patrol, he sees that there is an emergency ambulance that Alex is in. After he gets out of jail, he goes straight to see her and realizes that his heart is much worse and he may not have much time left to live. But when he asks her about her medication, she realizes that it is only acid medication and finds out that Alex is no longer taking his medication because he wants to end the suffering of his illness. She tries to explain to him that since childhood, she is doomed to die at any moment, and that way of living taught her to have no purposes and to be indifferent to everything. But that changed when I met Max, because she discovered his feeling when she met him. She knows that Max's condition does have a purpose and asks him to help her die. But he doesn't want to because he knows he will feel remorse if she does die after seeing him. Upon arriving at his house, Max starts hurting his face because he thinks it is a curse to have such an attractive face that he is capable of killing people, but the parents end up stopping him. Meanwhile, Alex tries to call him without getting any response. And that's because Max doesn't feel ready to let her go, but Danny Max meet at school where there is a photo of Valencia to say a last goodbye. And her friend tells her that the best thing is that they are together in the hospital when she dies. He decides to go see her at the hospital and sees that her illness has advanced a lot in the time he hasn't visited her. While she tells him that she is very tired trying to stay alive in a hospital bed. After all, he understood her suffering and that she will be better when she is free from her pain, and asks her to close her eyes to show him her face. But after removing the bandages, she opens her eyes and they kiss one last time. She understands that Dan's face is not a disgrace and tells him that his face looks a lot like he actually is. After a few days, Alex dies and Max returns to the bridge where she rescued him and decides to go back to therapy to get over his grief. But he realizes that he receives many letters from everywhere because Valencia's case became news, and although some wrote to him out of the curiosity of his faith, others wanted him to help them like he did with Alex. After all the suffering of her life, she understood that her faith has a purpose, and that is to help end people's pain. Little by little, he resumes his life and often goes to the nursing home to visit Esther. And he doesn't remember very well what happened with Alex, and he always asks about her. While Dan has to tell her she's busy with a Daniel Steele plagiarism lawsuit, which makes Esther feel great. Anyway, Alex taught him that the true antidote to death is unconditional love, and those who love him without limits know that Max's appeal is not his face. That's why he decided that he can remove the bandages on some occasions without his loved ones staring at his face, and that way everyone stays safe. The other parents now have a more stable and close relationship, and everything in their lives is improving little by little thanks to the therapy and the memory of Alex. So they have decided that they will try to live without the bandages on their face. This was Looks That Kill. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and activate the bell so you don't miss the next videos.